Hi friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we've got this Cold Steel Pro Lite Sport. This knife has been around for a while. It's discontinued, I believe. I'll talk more about that later. We've got a stonewash blade. We've got a drop point styling. You can also get it in a clip point and a tanto, if you can find it. We've got a Gryvex handle scales. That's a fiberglass reinforced plastic. It's a lockback style knife. Very functional, light, strong, triad lock, durable, and not much money at all. If you're in the market for a tough, reasonable sized knife, it is over 3 inches. You want something like this? I've got some links down below to make it easy for you to get them. In most countries, well, not most, in most areas, American links, Canadian links, and across the pond in Europe and the UK. Although I couldn't find it in all those places. It's not listed on the Cold Steel website anymore, so shop for it while you can. Let's get over to the tabletop and take a close look at this thing. All right, here it is. Pretty good looking knife. First thing to note is I believe they're totally out of production, and if a store is sold out, they're going to be gone for good. That's what it looks like from the little bit of research that I've done. I got mine from White Mountain Knives. They're totally out of stock now, and I only bought this a couple months ago. But I found it on Amazon. It's available. Several other stores, I'll link them all down below. Amazon is the only referral link that I have where if you buy it from that link, you'll be supporting the channel. So please consider that. Whenever you do that, please have the Amazon website totally closed on your computer and use my link to open it up. And that's the way I will earn a little bit of credit for it. And I really appreciate it if you do that. $24.35 on Amazon. It was $24.99 on White Mountain Knives, and you would have gotten 10% off, so it would have been like $22.49, which US dollars for this knife is quite good. The equivalency for that is about $28.50 Canadian. So, unfortunately, you're not going to get it there. Amazon.com has it $24.35 to $28.99, depending on which version or which color it is. Blades Canada has it. BladesCanada.com, also known as Warrior and Wonders, $44.99 Canadian, as opposed to $28.50 Canadian. So yeah, you're paying a premium in Canada. If you can find this in USA from a seller that will ship to you, get it that way, because it's totally legal in Canada. There's no problem with lockback knives coming into Canada. You know, the blade can't flick out. There's no problem at all getting this knife. It might get here slow, but it'll get to you. I can't guarantee it, but it's virtually guaranteed because our Border Services Agency has no problem at all with this type of knife. In Europe, I found coldsteel.de, so that's their warehouse in Germany. They're selling it for 39.99 euros up to 59.99 for the blue. 20 euro premium from the black to the blue. I would say get the black one. I also saw it on knivesandtools.co.uk, but only for the black, and 59 British pounds. Well, 58.95 British pounds. That's too much money for this knife. But then again, knife prices in the UK are nuts compared to America, and high even compared to Canada. It's not a super large knife. They've got other knives in their sort of light series. They've got another knife that looks very similar to this called the LBRY instead of the Pro Lite. That's with AUS 10 steel. This is 4116 German steel, which is very corrosion resistant, has a reasonable amount of carbon, and it's a reasonable budget steel that I don't mind. But before I get too far ahead of myself, how about a size comparison? This is the Ontario Rat 1, and no, they're not the same size. This camera's on an angle shooting down. So, this way it looks similar in size. This way, it looks a whole lot smaller. That's what perspective will do to you. So if I put them right next to each other this way, I'm going to line them up right at the very bottom. Then, they're not too much different in length. So it's not a large knife, but it's a knife. My hands are just into the extra large range, and there's a little bit of extra space right there that my hand could be a little bit bigger and still be comfortable. A reverse grip is very comfortable on this knife with that angle back here, and it's totally full. Yeah, that feels really good. Even a pull grip, a reverse pull grip, is not bad, quite comfortable. It's a nice knife, fist grip, put your thumb behind it. I'm not too fond of this little dip cut in here. It's not terrible, but it's really not comfortable because it's thinned out. It's not super thin there, but it is thinned out compared to the rest of the blade because this swedge, it comes all the way up right till there. So if they would have just done the swedge starting here going forward, it would have been a little thicker right there and would have been good for your thumb there. Right now, it's sort of a nod towards putting your thumb in there, but it's not quite good enough. Let's talk a little bit more about the blade. Like I said, drop point swedge, all stone wash, a good rough, coarse kind of stone wash. The belly and then a straight section back here, not too bad. Grind angles, yeah, we'll talk about those in a little while. They're fairly well done. The sharpener's choil, it's a little bit smaller than I'd like, but it's not bad. You can always make that bigger once you get to the time where you need it. After you've sharpened the knife up towards the end of the sharpener's choil, you just add it on. I've got a video on how to do that. The hollow grind, it ends up fairly thick behind the edge, so I don't like that so much. And we'll talk about those details later. How do you deploy this blade? Well, you've got a little, racetrack style hole there. You can just pinch it up front here and pull it open. It is fairly smooth, so if you can't get good grip with your fingertips, that might not be the best way to do it. You could pinch over here where you've got the hole and then open it up. That works just fine. But I find I can put my thumb into that hole and deploy the blade that way. That works just fine. You can go underneath, but then you're not going to be able to... There you go. I had to change the grip on my hand over here a couple of times. So if you're one-handed, yes, you can deploy the blade one-handed if you need to. We've got the Cold Steel Grivix handle scales. That's a fiberglass reinforced polymer, a plastic. It's actually quite good. With the finish they've got on here, as I've had on a couple other Cold Steels that I've reviewed, I don't mind their Grivix or Grivix, however that's pronounced. It works. It's strong enough that there's no other frame in this knife. The handle scales are the frame that holds it all together. I'll show you the insides of the knife. Well, yeah, I'll do it right now. I'll show you the insides of this knife. There it is taken apart. It just takes 3 screws to take it apart. They've got a little bit of blue Loctite on them, but it's not a very strong Loctite. It's not hard to take them apart at all. Here's the handle scales, polymer. These are strong handle scales. They have a little steel insert here for the pocket clip so that these will strip out with screws if you just put screws straight in here. So they do put little inserts in to make it work better. Here's your triad lock. 3 points of contact is what it takes to make a lock work. Right there, the pivot pin, and that surface right back here. Here's a close-up of it. Those 3 surfaces, once they're tight, make the blade lock up. So there's no blade play up and down. Even side to side, there's no play. There's a flex, but not play, so that's pretty good. And as you can see here, this is really simple how a back lock works. They're not exactly identical, all of them, but this very same principle. There's some kind of spring on the back of it. There's a pivot point for the lock arm. You push down, and it disengages the lock so that the blade can close. When you let go, that interface happens again and it holds it tight. So it's just a little spring here held in that slot. Very simple system. White nylon washers on this one. The more expensive knives that are like this with the triad lock from Cold Steel, they use phosphor bronze washers instead of these nylon ones, but these nylon ones are totally adequate for what this is. The screws, they're D-shaped non-spinning screws. That's why on this side, there's no screw hole. These have rounded heads, kind of like button screws, which is kind of odd. I wish they were flush, just like the pivot screw. And on the other side here, we got the same thing. We've got button screws. T10 for this guy. T6 is for these. I wish these were T8s instead of T6s. I don't mind this being a T10, but if you're going to do a T10 here, why would you do T6s over here? Do something bigger like T8s. So very simple setup, very functional, totally adequate for what it needs to be. Put it back together and let's keep going. So yeah, the construction of it's well made. The lock back here, they didn't really chamfer the edges on it, but they're just ever so lightly rounded over so it's not hot in the hand to rub your thumb on there. You push it in all the way and it's disengaged. The blade doesn't flop around. If you make it loose enough on the pivot for it to flop around, well, then you're going to start getting side-to-side blade play. So that's completely adjustable on your own. Blade centering, very good. Not perfect, but very good. The pocket clip, you've got a right and left pocket clip, and they provide screws for all 6 of them. A lot of knives would just leave that out, but the reason they do that is to keep that metal plate at the back that I showed you when I took it apart, keeps that in place. So don't throw away these screws unless you're never ever going to change what side you're going to put the pocket clip on, because you might lose the metal plate on the back as well. The pocket clip is decent. It holds the knife in the pocket very well. It sometimes catches. If you've got a pocket that's doing this, it's starting to fall apart, it's going to catch on there sometimes and try to get stuck in there. But if you've got if your pants have a new edge on the pocket, it's going to climb over, generally speaking, and go right down. The texture on this Gravix is not so coarse that it's going to tear your pants apart, but it is a little bit coarse. What I would do is I'd take the pocket clip off, and where the pocket clip touches this low spot right here, just sand that smooth. Just sand a little pad smooth there, and your pocket, it's going to slide in and out of your pocket more easily. So, but that's totally up to you. But on a budget knife like this, hey, modify it a little bit. Who cares? Are you going to lose resale value? Well, it doesn't have much resale value anyways because it's such a budget knife to start with. So go for it. I like that it's it's stonewashed, so it's not all super bright and glossy like a lot of pocket clips are. The lanyard hole. The placement for the lanyard hole is very, very good, but it's fairly wide back here, and so your paracord is going to stick out even further. It's going to get bulky back there, but at least it's the furthest back on the handle that you can possibly get, so nothing wrong with that at all. But nothing else wrong with that at all. I like that they used D-shaped screws. It makes, the one side of the knife look really nice and well made. Big stop pin in there. Goes all the way through, so it's held in place perfectly. This here, the jimping for your thumb rest here, it's a good idea, but that jimping, that's way too coarse. You really don't get that much useful grip out of it. If they had 5 jimps in there, so they'd be a little bit smaller each, they'd still be big and coarse. That would be much better. I don't think you want to do a whole lot of really fine little jimping in there, but a little bit less coarse than this would be very welcomed. All right. That's most of the stuff. Let's go over all of the sizes, dimensions, and that kind of stuff. This knife weighs 87 grams, 3.1 ounces. So yes, it's a light knife. I didn't show you before, the balance point is right there, which is very good. The sharpness from the factory measured about straight down from where it says Pro Lite, right about there is where I measured it. 90 best, 200 or less is sharp, so yeah, very sharp from the factory. The length of the cutting edge, tip to the sharpness choil, the heel of the edge there, 80.5 millimeters, 3.169 inches. The blade from the tip to the closest spot on the handle, 83.6 millimeters, that's 3.2915 inches. The blade thickness at the ricasso, the flats up here, 2.85 millimeters, that's 0.112 inches, so just a little bit under 1/8 of an inch. The blade depth, the widest point is right here, 28.4 millimeters, that's 1.118 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, again, straight down from the logo, pretty much where you do a lot of your cutting is where I measured it, 0.76 millimeters, 30 thousandths of an inch. That's like 50% thicker than I prefer. I'd like it to be 20 thousandths of an inch, about half a millimeter. It's going to get thicker every time you sharpen it, even though this is a hollow grind. So thankfully, it's not going to get thick as quickly as if it was a saber grind, like a flat grind here, but the hollow grind is not saving it an awful lot. Now for the grind angles, the brand side here, 13.1 degrees in the middle, 19.8 degrees in the middle here. It changes a little bit further down the blade, but a good 2/3 of the middle section here is very close to those measurements. So not too bad. And now we get to the handle measurements. The handle length, 11.71 centimeters, 4.61 inches. The grip area, so between my thumbs, very close to 9 3/4 centimeters, about 3 3/4 inches, maybe closer to 3.8 inches. The thickness of the handle, not counting the pocket clip, the widest spot in the grip is 12.47 millimeters. That's 0.491, so half an inch thick, just under. The handle depth, the widest spot this way within the grip area, 27 millimeters. That's 1.063 inches. And when the knife is closed, the widest spot is right here, 38.6 millimeters, 1.5195 inches. And the total length of the knife from tip to the very end of the handle, 20.07 centimeters, which is 7.9015 inches. The length of the edge compared to the length of the handle, that's a pretty good balance. And it is balanced well. It's light. It's functional. You can get it, in a nice black if you want to, but sometimes you like bright colors. So the blue is available some places. I like this knife. Very functional, very user-friendly. It's a knife that is very functional. You can use it for, all kinds of EDC tasks. It's got a reasonable tip for puncturing. It's got a good grip, looks good, and you can also get it with a Tanto or a clip point. So that's kind of nice. And then they've got higher end versions of the same basic idea. You've got the Airlight instead of the Pro Lite, which are very similar, but with AUS 10A. And then you can get even higher end knives. Cold Steel's got a good variety. It's one of those brands that has the spectrum from really good, very low budget knives, under $30 knives. So that's great. And of course, they've got knives that are in the hundreds of dollars as well. You can just get whatever you want, basically, from Cold Steel. Hopefully, under the new ownership, they'll continue making some good low-cost knives. It's not guaranteed, so if you can afford it, getting some good budget Cold Steel knives, if you want them, now's the right time to do it. So, a lot of pros. Again, what are the cons? Too thick behind the grind. you can't really fix that at home. You'd need sort of a knife making shop to regrind the bevel. The other things you can't change. I would like smaller jimping up here, but that's pretty minor. That's not a big deal at all. And the only other thing that I really found that I didn't like all that much was the tiny sharpness choil. But again, that's not hard to fix at home as well. It's a decent knife. If you've got one, it's not hard to clean. It's got a very strong lock, easy to carry, fun to use because, you know, who doesn't like a cold steel? Well, I'm sure there's somebody. There's always somebody. So, if you've got any other questions about this knife, please leave it in the comments down below. If you want to help this channel to succeed, please subscribe. Please hit the like button or the dislike button if you don't like the video. And share the videos with your friends. Commenting really does make a difference, even if you just say hi. Seriously, it makes a big difference if you comment on a video. I read all the comments. Sometimes it takes a few days for me to get to the comments, but if you've got a question, please do leave it in the comments. I'll get to it. You can always email me at canadiancuttingedge@gmail.com, and I'll get to it that way. If you'd like to support the channel even more, consider becoming a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/CCE. I've got what I think is pretty good perks. You can win a knife every single month. There's a draw for a free knife to one of my Patreon supporters, and it's in the low 40s. So you got basically a 1 in 40 chance every single month to win a knife. That's not bad odds. And you get the first 48 hours access to any knife sale that I do. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.